Welcome to Money Secrets with Bill and Mike.
I'm Bill Alexander.
And I'm Mike Tove. And Bill, today I'd like to talk about what you do. You're a lawyer, you're an attorney, a financial planning, estate planning, and asset preservation attorney. And
Well, it helps to be a specialist like us because our law firm, W.G. Alexander and Associates, is about estate planning. That's the basic start. But then we add on to it elder law and asset protection. That's a fairly unique group of expertise.
Yeah, and I know that there's different practices and so forth out there. So when we come back from break, I'd like to get into a little bit about that.
I'm looking forward to it.
And we're back. Okay, Bill. So I've been working with you for
15 years.
A long time. And so I know because I get people come to me all the time with legal documents, and I look at them, and because I'm not an attorney, I do the financial side of things, but I'm not actually the lawyer, so I cannot give legal advice. But I know that when they come to me and they've been to a general practice attorney, and that the quality of the documents is just not going to be necessarily where it needs to
Well,
be.
so many folks really believe that, oh, I've got a will, I've got a power of attorney, I'm set. And there's nothing farther from the truth, at least for most clients. There is a real difference in the types of documents that a family can get from even an estate planner versus a general practitioner. But when you add on to that the issues that seniors face with elder law and the potential for long-term care crisis and the need for asset protection, when you go to a planner that is not just an estate planner, but one who has an expertise in elder law and in asset protection, you get far more options and you get a much better product. But it's not just about the documents. It's really important for folks to understand that it's the advice that comes with the documents. It's the things that the attorney helps you put in place that makes your documents work. And that's one of the biggest issues with folks who think they have it right and they're nowhere close.
Well, the problem with that is that how do people know? I mean, if I go to a large law firm and I say, should I retain you to do this? They're not going to say, well, probably not, because they're going to say, of course, we have all these different attorneys, we have this, we have that. How does somebody actually know if they're at the right place?
Well, even in a large firm, most large firms don't have an attorney who is an elder law practitioner on staff. Some do, but most don't. They may not focus on asset protection. So part of it is, what are the credentials of the attorney that you're talking to? There are
so
some
it's not just that, so being an attorney isn't necessarily the only credential.
No, I mean, it's the kind of thing, why would you go to a family lawyer or a personal injury lawyer or a contract lawyer when what you're really looking for is, how do I take care of my family? How do I take care of my spouse and myself during our lifetime? What kind of planning can we put in place that will allow us to keep control of our property during our lifetime, basically be able to protect our spouse, protect our children when we're gone, and do it at the lowest cost possible. Those are issues that are really important to people.
So, yeah, I mean, so if I was to come to you and we didn't know each other, what would be a question I should ask so that I can differentiate you from the next? Let's be honest, there are a lot of lawyers out there.
Sure,
okay?
absolutely.
In fact, I saw a thing back when we had Yellow Pages. I saw a
They
thing.
still exist, sort of.
Nobody uses them. But I remember they had this thing where they were showing picture stacks of law books, and this is how many attorneys proportionally were around 5 years ago, and then 10, and then now, and it's like, so how do I ask the question?
Well, part of it, part of it is what are the credentials of the attorney? How are they rated? You know, our law firm is rated at the very highest level by our peers, not just by our clients. We're at the highest rating for clients as well. But from our peer review, we are AV preeminent, which puts us in less than 1% of the top attorneys in the country. So that certainly should open some eyes,
So
but
should I
it's
ask-
also what we do.
So what do I ask? Do I say, what's your rating? I mean, if I
Well,
went in
not
and-
not necessarily. I mean, part of it is who's available to you, but it really comes down to what kind of planning. The problem for most folks is they really don't know what options are available. Now, in more cases than not, the wife is insisting that we go to an attorney and get our documents in place. And so for a lot of folks is we just want a will. And then the attorney says, well, you need more than just a will. You need a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney and a healthcare declaration for natural death and a medical release that's HIPAA compliant. But that's not enough either. I mean, that's just skin deep when you're really talking about planning, because most folks have issues that are far greater than I just want to leave everything to my spouse, and they don't know that they can actually have a plan where they can leave property to their spouse in a protected environment. And it can be simply an asset protection plan. They can also use a plan where they can not only protect their spouse, but they can also make sure that their spouse is qualified for government assistance if they need long-term care, if they need nursing care, which will deplete seniors' portfolios so fast it's not funny. And one of the biggest issues for seniors is running out of money.
Yeah.
So having a plan in place that assures you that you will not run out of money is a very unique product that most folks can't get without coming to an attorney who really understands those issues.
Okay. So it's about looking at, I guess it's like anything. You go to the right doctor, you want to check credentials, you want to just make sure that you're with somebody who is going to be there. So when we come back from the break, I want to explore some details. And we're back. So Bill, one of the things that I want to be able to help our viewers with is, how does somebody who doesn't know what they're looking for figure out what they're looking for a
Well,
better term?
that's where good advice comes in. And oftentimes folks will come to me and they'll bring in a listing of their assets. And they think that's really all that I'm interested in putting together a plan for them. And frankly, I tell them to put it away. I say, yes, I do need to have a basic understanding of your net worth and what types of property you own, because that can be helpful in helping people arrange their estate plan. But what's really more important to me as a planner is, what are the family dynamics? What are the, what skeletons are in the closet? What, do the children get along? Do the children get along with each other? Do they get along with you? Are they savers? Are they spenders? What are not only your hopes, but what are your fears for yourself, your spouse, and your children and grandchildren? Those are the significant issues that really push us towards one plan or another plan. Now, in terms of talking about maybe the difference, particularly those of modest means, let's say they own their house, it's worth $150,000, they have a nest egg of maybe $300,000 or so, and they come to you and they think, well, we're basically trying to take care of each other at home. We want to make sure we have the documents in place. Well, if they go to most lawyers, they'll end up with what we call sweetheart planning, a will that says I leave everything to my spouse and then equally to my children, and they'll give them a simple power of attorney. Now, for most seniors, that is exactly the wrong plan. Now, why is it? It's because most of them are worried about running out of money. They're worried about long-term care. We all know that as we age, our bodies don't function as well. Sometimes we have a disease that is debilitating. Typically, a spouse is taking care of there's a caregiver. Sometimes they're both caregivers for each other because they both have limitations. But the fact of the matter is that oftentimes in cases like that, we want to use a trust in their will, what we call a modified sweetheart plan, where we can leave everything to our spouse in trust. That is a supplemental needs trust. Typically, we're asking one of our children to be the trustee, but that trust has everything protected when you die. Everything that goes to your spouse is protected. It qualifies for Medicaid if they need government assistance for nursing care, because oftentimes when a person dies, the spouse does need care outside the home at that time because the caregiver is no longer there. And so those are the kinds of things that you can put in place at your death. Or another fear that so many people have is we're worried about our children, we're worried about our children's marriages. We don't want our inheritance to go to that son-in-law or daughter-in-law if that marriage doesn't last. So you can put a trust in your estate plan for your children to give them an asset protection plan that's not marital property, it's a very simple plan that they can control during their lifetime. But those are the kind of options that most people don't realize that they can actually put in place at fairly low cost, and it makes a huge difference to their family.
One of the things that I get clients, and they say this to me a lot, they'll say something like, well, my kids are doing better than me. They're fine. They don't need anything, you know. They're great. It's just not important.
Well, we like to think our children will do better than us, but as you know, the generation coming behind us are struggling.
Yeah.
It's far more difficult for our children and their children to be doing as well as we've done.
Well, even for the folks where what I just said is true, one of the things that I always come back to with clients is I say, look, when you guys are gone, somebody is going to get your stuff, and it's going to be one of two entities. An entity, your kids, who you would like to get it, or somebody like the government who you probably don't want to get it.
Absolutely, and there are ways that you can put plans in place to keep the government out of your pockets, make sure you don't pay estate tax, lower your income tax bill, but that takes good planning.
Yeah, but so what are some, but just because I know, because I hear this all the time, and so if I was to come to you and say, well, let's start with a will. I have a will. What would be so wrong about me having a will specifically that was drawn up by a general practice attorney versus you? What could you put in one? What examples, for example?
Well, first of all, what a general practitioner does, and even some estate planners, the plan on the piece of paper may be correct, it may be right, but the bigger problem is how do you use that? And so many folks don't realize that the way they hold title to their property is the linchpin to good estate planning. And unfortunately, most attorneys don't talk about how to hold title to make your estate plan work. In my practice, I've seen very expensive tax plans, very expensive other plans that simply failed because they didn't understand how title would affect their planning. So when we come back, I really want to talk about that because that's probably the biggest issue as to making a plan fail
So,
or
yeah,
be
so
successful.
one thing I say is that the devil is always in the details.
And that's perfect as it comes to estate planning.
So we'll see in a minute. And we're back. Okay. So, Bill, you were going to give us some specifics.
Well, title to property makes your plan work or fail. And the fact of the matter is, most people do want to have some control in terms of how their net worth is distributed upon their death. And it's not so simple as a beneficiary designation to the spouse or children or a simple will. Anyone who has any kind of sophisticated plan, if they're married, they're likely to have to change title to make their plan work. For instance, most married couples own their house or all of their real estate together jointly, and that basically means that the survivor gets it. They own most of their bank accounts joint with right of survivorship. They own their investment accounts joint with right of survivorship. Their life insurance, their annuities, and their retirement plans go by beneficiary designation. So all of that, as I've just lined out, does not go by your will or trust if you haven't changed how you hold your property. So Mike, what do you have left if all of that property is outside your will or trust?
Your house.
Well, no,
Well,
your
okay.
house is outside of your will or
okay,
trust.
so then there's very little. There's nothing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's your stuff. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's the kind of things that you don't do a sophisticated trust or even a will for. That's why. I mean, it's once you see it, you understand it. But the one of the biggest issues as it relates to good planning versus bad planning is it's not just about your documents, that your documents have to be right, but it's also about making sure the title to your property corresponds to your planning. And that's not, I mean, that's a matter of working with the financial advisor so that the financial advisor can help. It's also oftentimes, whether it's a trust or not a trust, whether it's a revocable trust that you do during your lifetime, or it's a testamentary trust that you use at your death, you still want to make sure that your property goes to the trustee and not outright to your spouse or to your children.
Well, actually, you raised something here just a minute ago that I think is kind of interesting. And it's that people, how do I put it? People come in and think that they have the legal documents, so everything is hunky-dory, and then they'll say something like this: well, this was really easy. You know, I lost my husband, I lost my wife, and the probate was nothing, and none of this. And they assume that
the next time it'll be easy.
the next one is going to be easy, and of course they're never around for it. But it's not that way.
No, it's not. Actually, that's another part of good planning, is that after one spouse dies, the planning always should be changed because it is complex, it is difficult to probate if you don't change your planning after the first spouse dies. Now, there are plans you can put in place that takes care of both spouses to make it easy, faster, cheaper, or less expensive. But oftentimes that planning doesn't occur until after a spouse dies.
Right.
And if one spouse inherits everything, which is very common, then that's when they should put a plan in place where they can make sure that it's easier on their children and grandchildren when they pass.
Well, I'm actually going through this with a family member where the planning was not done as well as I wished that it had been. I pressed a lot, and it is a nightmare.
Well, after the fact, it's very difficult, and that's where having someone who is very familiar with probate and trust administration, which of course we do a lot of that as well, but we would rather not have a complicated estate. We would rather make sure that the family gets the good advice in advance so that it's smooth, it's fast, and it's less expensive.
And you know, and there's a secret in that is, because you were saying it in the break, is that having a financial planner, I mean, that's my side of things,
we'll
so
get that to you,
hopefully,
Mike.
yeah,
Yeah.
who can work with an attorney so that it becomes a team effort rather than it's just a onesie. But what I see, and I hear a lot, is I hear that attorneys look at the financial people as a competitor, not a partner.
Oh, I agree with you, and I think that's
I think
part of
that's
the
a
interview
mistake.
process. There are some attorneys that make it very clear that they want to work with your financial people, your insurance people, your banker, to make sure that your planning is consistent and it's networked together. Because any one of those professionals can mess up a good plan.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll be back in a minute and wrap up. And we're back. So Bill, you know, this was about you and me, mostly you. But so why don't you put the money secret on it?
Well, the money secret is to get good legal advice from a specialist who can put all of this together and network with the financial advisors, the insurance advisors, the bankers, to make sure that your plan works. Remember that title to property makes a plan work or fail. That's the money secret.
Yeah. So I'm Mike Tove of AIN Services. I'm the financial side, and I can be reached at 800-363-2296.
And I'm Bill Alexander with W.G. Alexander and Associates. We're attorneys that focus on estate planning, elder law, and asset protection planning. And I would like to invite you to listen to my radio show, Asset Protection Today, at 11 a.m. on Saturday mornings on WPTF 680 AM.
And thank you.
Thanks for watching.